Okay, hello folks. I'm Dr. Murray Susser. I'm here to talk to you on the subject of laboratory testing and self-worth and how to deal with illness. What does that mean? The title of this talk is You Are More Important Than Your Lab Tests. And that sounds obvious, doesn't it? But when you're talking about diagnosing a condition, in this case we'll use hypothyroid or low thyroid function as the condition. If you want to diagnose that, many doctors, perhaps probably most doctors, look at the lab tests, and if the thyroid hormone is low or the thyroid stimulating hormone is high, then they will call it low thyroid or hypothyroid without talking too much about your condition or what's going on with you. Now, since the thyroid gland, which sits here in the neck, right here under my rooster gobbler neck, there's a thyroid gland. And that thyroid gland produces T4 and T3. T4 is thyroxine, which is made from tyrosine and 4 atoms of iodine. So you can see where iodine is very important for the thyroid gland. If you don't have those 4 atoms of iodine on there, then you have T3. You might have, if you have 3 atoms, it's T3. That is the most active and most effective thyroid hormone in the body. So what exactly does thyroid do? Thyroid hormone goes out into the body and goes into the cells, and the cells are energy generators in many ways, and you have to have energy generated in the cell for this thing to work. So the thyroid hormone acts as a spark plug to the oxygen that we breathe and the food, the calories that we eat, and the calories function to produce energy in the form of carbohydrates or sugars. Now, this sugar is good for you. It isn't the sugar that you eat, it's the sugar that the body produces and generates in metabolism as it's burning oxygen. So what do we have? We have thyroid hormone, and we have thyroid hormone acting in the body, going into various cells and generating energy. And this energy does not necessarily reflect when we measure the thyroid hormones. So when we measure thyroid hormones, typical good pattern would be to measure 3 thyroid hormones. Thyroxine, which is T4, and the thyroxine goes out into the bloodstream and loses one of the 4 iodines and becomes T3. And T3 is a fast-acting and very active hormone. And it goes into the cell, and it takes the oxygen and the carbohydrate and sparks them like the spark plug in your cylinder in your car that takes gasoline and oxygen and sparks that, and that creates a kind of a gentle explosion, and that drives the piston in your engine. And just as the thyroid hormone, the T3, along with the carbohydrate and oxygen, produces energy for your body. Now, there's also TSH, which comes from the pituitary gland, which is up here in the brain, right in the center, and the TSH stimulates the thyroid gland to produce T4, which then goes out into the system and becomes T3. And you can measure all of these hormones. You can measure the TSH, you can measure the T4, you can measure the T3, and presumably when the T4 and the T3 is low, then you can say you have low thyroid. That's what the point I would make from this discussion. You can have perfectly normal levels of T4, T3, and TSH and have low thyroid function or high thyroid function, some sort of imbalance in the thyroid. So there are many people who go to doctors, and the doctor measures the thyroid hormones and said they're perfectly normal, but the patient might say, look, I went on the internet and I looked on the internet, I found that that I have dry skin, I have cold skin, I have constipation, I have slow pulse, I have low blood pressure, I have hair falling out and it's dry, and I have very low energy and very low motivation. All those things go along with low thyroid. And the doctor says, your thyroid tests are normal. So there's and that's unfortunately how most doctors operate. What we find with thyroid gland, if you take a therapeutic trial of a thyroid hormone, and there's 3 kinds of hormones that are generally available. One of them is desiccated thyroid or dried thyroid, which is from the whole gland of an animal. The other would be thyroxine, which is T4, or liothyronine, which is T3. Now, I prefer to use the dried thyroid, and I use that, and what I find is that people taking a small amount of this thyroid hormone will fairly rapidly start to improve if they need the thyroid hormone. If they don't need it and you watch them carefully, there's a lot of careful points you have to do when you're doing a therapeutic trial. But this therapeutic trial is often much more meaningful and much more accurate than the thyroid hormone levels that you measure in the blood. Now, that just means that our technology has not yet caught up with the kind of diseases that we have. And low thyroid function is a very common condition, and most people who have it have maybe what you would call subclinical. It doesn't show up on the test. It shows up in the function. So the message you can take home from this is that you can go to your doctor and say, can I have a therapeutic trial of thyroid? If you read up on these symptoms and see that what I'm saying is accurate for you, then go to your doctor and say, I would like a prescription for thyroid hormone, and I would like you to monitor me. And when I monitor the thyroid hormone, I monitor the pulse, monitor the blood pressure. The pulse is a very good monitor for thyroid. If your normal pulse is, say, 65 or 70, and you take thyroid and it goes up to 90 or even 80, you're getting too much. Doesn't mean that you can't correct it. You can correct that and go back to a smaller dose of the thyroid and manage it using the resting pulse. And there are other things you can do, but I don't have time to tell you about them right now. I think I've gone over a reasonable amount of time, but I hope this gives you an idea that you can do many things without a lab test, or without an agreeing lab test. That lab test may not agree with your clinical picture. So see your doctor and do it.